So these are the guys that run the show. This is Kyle, our editor-in-chief.
How's it going?
This is creative director Ethan Nicole.
Okay. So, I mean, well, I guess before we get started, like, maybe you guys could tell me, like, what's the, how did the Bee get started, and
yeah, sure.
Yeah, what's your deal, and why are you in California?
We're getting interviewed. That's way easier, actually.
I'm much better at being interviewed, so no problem. Yeah, the Bee was just this little like Christian humor site that we launched in 2016, and it was just like we spent $50 on the domain name, started writing jokes, throwing them out there, and it started to go big in conservative circles a couple years ago, and that's just kind of where we got to where we are. Seth is our CEO. He bought the site a few years ago from the original founder. Yeah.
Who was the original founder?
His name is Adam Ford.
He's not with the company anymore.
He owns a piece of it. Yeah. He does not the Bee now. If you've seen that, yeah.
But they're just unaffiliated?
No, they're kind of affiliated. Yeah.
Yeah, because you retweet them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do like real news, but crazy real news.
Real news.
It's like the backup plan. It's like when satire is impossible because the world's too absurd, then we just report on the absurdity over on Not the Bee.
I see.
So, plan B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reality is weirder than fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Often is. So how many people at the Bee now?
Yeah, we've got probably a dozen full-timers now. It's grown pretty fast. A year ago, it was 3 of us.
Okay.
We have like 25 people involved, just not all full-time staff. So you'd be surprised. Like with satire, you don't have to have a writing staff like filling a room, churning out articles all day long. You can only handle so much satire every day. We don't need to publish an article every 3 minutes like Fox News or Daily Wire or something like that. So we have a lot of part-time. One of our writers here, Frank Fleming, is one of our writers, and he's got a full-time job. He just writes for us on the side.
Okay.
We'd love to have him full-time.
Yeah. I'm the local guy.
Yeah, he lives in Austin.
Oh, you live in Austin, okay.
Texas over California.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm a Florida guy. The headquarters are technically in South Florida. I'm in Southeast Florida. Yeah, and
Florida man.
I'd love to get these guys to Florida, but it's hard to get people out of California. It really is. It's more challenging than you think.
Despite the state of California doing everything it can to encourage people to leave.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you had one article about how Gavin Newsom is a U-Haul Salesman of the Year.
Yeah.
Actually true. Actually true.
So you don't miss it then?
No, there's certainly many aspects of California that I do like. Most of my friends are still in California. Some of my best friends are California. So yeah, I do miss many aspects of California, especially my friends. And it's beautiful and lots of cool things, but increasingly difficult to get things done. And California used to be the land of opportunity, and now it's becoming more so the land of sort of over-regulation, over-litigation, over-taxation.
Poop on the sidewalk.
And scorn. It's not like thanks for the taxes. It's like thanks for the taxes and
hacksaw
kick you in the teeth. It's like
Sucks.
Exactly. You didn't exactly get a thank you note.
Yeah.
So the Bee, okay, let me flip the question though. So that's kind of the story of the Bee. The Bee started out as, this little blog, it took off, it's kind of blown up into something like now we have a following, including you. Like how do we get on your radar? People sharing our articles and you just saw them coming across your feed?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw you on Twitter at one point. I thought some of the articles were quite funny.
I wrote those.
Okay. Yeah, I used to be a much bigger fan of the Onion, but then the Onion just seems to have gotten really politically correct. It's sort of gone a bit in the SNL direction, somewhat leftist. It's basically it will not really make fun of anything on the left, but it used to be much more even-handed than the Onion. and then they just got the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
So to the point where the Onion it used to be very funny, and then it was not that funny. You know, SNL. I used to be a huge fan of SNL, but you know, I still think they have some occasional good stuff. But it's just become. I think you've written some articles about this. You know, SNL had many, if not most of the SNL episodes are kind of a moral lecture on why we're bad human beings,
right.
Instead of comedy.
Yeah.
So, and again, won't make fun of anything on the left, really. Like, you know, they'll beat up on Ted Cruz 17,000 times.
Right.
You're like, okay, we get it. You know.
And often because he's made fun of someone on the left, he'll make fun of someone on the left, and then they jump on him for that. It's like a defensive thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just there are just a lot of no-fly zones with a lot of comedy, and then you realize that's like, wait a second, is the comedy getting at an essential truth, or trying to, or is there a propaganda element, or is it trying to push you in a particular direction, or getting to an essential truth that is humorous? Mm-hmm. And when it stops trying to get to an essential truth that is humorous, then you know it's just not that funny.
Right. Now see, that's exactly the criticism we get from the left. The criticism from the left is that that's what we're doing with our humor, is that we're trying to push a narrative, neglecting the truth.
Well, it's literally what the New York Times says, was that we are far-right misinformation disguised as satire.
Right.
You know? So there's it's almost where you're standing.
Jealousy to it.
Yeah, it's almost based on where you're standing, that how you see it.
It's based on where you're standing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say the Bee is moderately right. It's not, but it's not, certainly not far right. My impression is not that. I would say that the Bee is not probably. It wouldn't be accurate to say the Bee is fully centrist. But it is certainly not far right. If 1 is fully left and 10 is fully right, the Bee seems to be at 6.5 towards the right.
So Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Babylon Bee, Hitler, or somewhere on that scale.
Yeah, it's not, but you know, but I mean, the Bee is, I think, less right than say the Onion is left, for example. You know, so the Onion, I think, would be more left than the Bee is right. Rightist, or whatever.
Yeah, rightist. I don't know.
We'll have to put that on our Wikipedia page.
Just as a leftist. Rightist propaganda.
You know, you talked about the woke mind virus, and I was wondering if you could decipher this tweet of yours for me, because I'm not a programmer. You wrote trace route woke _mind _virus. What does that mean?
Okay, so trace route is a networking command to. So if you want to figure out a path to a particular server or domain, you'd say traceroute, or in Windows, traceRT. That would show you the path to a particular source server, either an IP address or domain name, and it would show you basically all the hops that it goes through, and the latency between each hop. And so
I know some of those words.
Yeah. So traceroute would be like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
Where did the virus come from? What is its origin?
So did this work? Did this command work? Or no? Did you
read the comments. Read the comments and see.
All right.
It is a prevalent mind virus, and arguably one of the biggest threats to modern civilization.
Also, not having enough kids, right?
I think most people, if you just simply look at the birth rate statistics, you can tell what the future is going to be like because you can see how many children were born last year, and then you can say, like, is the birth rate trending down or up? And it's been trending down basically almost everywhere. So if you look at the birth rate last year, you know how many adults there will be in 20 years because that's how many babies were born. The trend is like you don't have to be some master or statistician or something like that. You can just look at kids born last year trending to well below replacement rate, and a lot of countries have been well below replacement rate for a long time.
Well, the concern is that if you have kids, then they'll contribute to climate change, and then they'll kill the Earth, right? That's the leftist concern, is that we're overpopulating the Earth and that we're going to kill it. Are you trying to overpopulate the Earth so that we can go to Mars? and take over Mars?
The Earth is far from
Is this a
overpopulated.
deliberate strategy?
The Earth is far from overpopulated. Far from overpopulated. So the thing that's necessary to minimize the chemical change to the atmosphere and oceans is to move to sustainable energy generation and consumption. So the three elements of a sustainable energy future are sustainable energy generation, primarily through solar, wind, some geothermal, hydro, and nuclear. Although they're shutting down all the nuclear power stations, so you can sort of cross that one off the list, which they shouldn't be doing. They should keep moving. They're really, unless a nuclear power plant is in a region of major natural disasters,
Like instability or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be subject to massive natural disasters, because obviously that could be a problem. But if you're, like say Germany or France or whatever, they don't have those, so the nuclear power is very safe. But anyway, the long-term, the heavy lifting on energy generation will be solar, followed by wind, and you really don't need a very large land area to generate enough power to power, for example, the United States. So it's on the order of, roughly a little over 100 miles by 100 miles a section of land with solar panels would power the entire United States. So like a little corner of Utah or Texas, it can power the whole country. So anyway, it's really not that hard. The solar incidence is a gigawatt per square kilometer. For most nuclear,
I'm just going to do some calculations.
most nuclear power plants.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a kilowatt per square meter, and there's a million square meters in a square kilometer. So it's pretty simple math. So and then you'll get like maybe 20% efficiency on that. So call it like a net power generation of 200 megawatts per square kilometer. Now, if you take most nuclear power plants, there's usually a pretty big clear area around a nuclear power plant, because people don't usually want to live right next to a nuclear power plant. So the area of most nuclear power plants that is uninhabited, if covered in solar panels, would generate more power than the nuclear power plant. And then the second element that's needed are batteries to store solar and wind, because the sun doesn't shine all the time and the wind doesn't blow all the time. So the intermittency of solar and wind requires battery storage for continuous power. So that's the second part of the second pillar of sustainable energy. And the third is sustainable transport. So that means electric cars, boats, planes. And then ironically, the one thing that you can't really make electric is rockets. And I was involved in that. But although you can, over time, use solar power to generate fuel by pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere, combining it with H2O, creating CH4, which is methane, and O2, oxygen. And rockets are mostly oxygen by mass. So over time, you can make everything basically solar powered.
So you're working on some of those problems, but the problem of wokeness specifically, you mentioned that's like a mind virus and it's destructive. And why do you think wokeness is so destructive?
I'd be interested in your opinions too. But, generally, I think we should be aiming for like a positive society, and, that it should be okay to, be humorous. We should, wokeness basically wants to make comedy illegal, which is not cool.
We've experienced a little bit of that.
I mean, Chappelle, what the?
Flower bed.
I mean, try to shut down Chappelle? Come on, man. That's crazy. So do we want a humorless society that is simply rife with condemnation and hate, basically?
And no forgiveness, right?
Yeah. At its heart, wokeness is divisive, exclusionary, and hateful. It basically gives mean people a reason. It gives them a shield to be mean and cruel, armored in false virtue. What do you think?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously seen that from the left, just ourselves. The left is almost this religion now where they're so serious and they believe what they believe with such intensity that for us to make fun of them, for them it's like you're making fun of God or salvation, So they're almost the new religious right in our view.
Yeah.
He agreed with me. Nobody take note. Well, you were pretty mean to Senator Warren, though, on Twitter recently. You slammed her, man. Please don't call the manager on me, Senator Karen.
She struck first, obviously.
Right.
Yes, she did.
She called me a freeloader
Yeah.
and a grifter who doesn't pay taxes, basically. And I'm literally paying the most tax that any individual in history has ever paid this year, ever. And she doesn't pay taxes, basically at all. And her salary is paid for by the taxpayer, like me.
Could you even use use TurboTax?
irony?
Would that even work?
If you could die by irony, she would be dead. If irony could kill.
What would happen if you walked into an H&R Block to file your taxes? Like, could they handle your case?
My taxes are actually not that complicated. I do not have any offshore accounts. I don't have any sort of tax shelters. I have basically Tesla and SpaceX stock, and Tesla is publicly traded, so all information is public, and SpaceX is, a C corp that is audited, that has outside auditors, so it'll with outside investors. So everything is extremely transparent. There are no elaborate sort of tax avoidance schemes or anything like that. So H&R Block could easily do my taxes. I don't need H&R Block. I could do it.
Yeah.
I'd probably take me a few hours to do my taxes. It's very basic.
Did you sell that stock in Tesla because of the Twitter poll?
In part.
Had you made up your mind that you were already going to do that before the Twitter poll?
I have some Tesla options that are expiring next year. So I needed to exercise those options no matter what. And I was like, okay, I'll move forward and exercise those options. So that certainly would be part of it no matter what. But then over and above that, I sold incremental stock to try to get up to the 10% level. So just the option exercise alone would not get to 10%. So I sold stock that should be roughly make my total Tesla share sale roughly 10%.
Is the most annoying thing in the world people asking you questions like this about your personal finances? Hey, no one ever asks me what stock I'm selling or why I made so much money last year. I mean, I'm the third richest man on my street, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
I mean, I'm not sure it's all that productive or interesting. Essentially all of my net worth is just in SpaceX and Tesla stock. These two companies that I helped create and have run for now almost 20 years have done a lot of useful things. SpaceX launches more payload to orbit than the rest of the world combined, and has a global internet system called Starlink, and is the primary provider, the only U.S. provider of astronaut transport to the space station.
We publish 6 to 8 satire articles a day.
Some of them are funny. So that's, pretty good.
So SpaceX, it transports U.S. And as well as non-U.S. Astronauts to the space station. That was previously the U.S. was dependent on Russia, who was doing a good job, but charging kind of crazy money per seat. So with SpaceX, the cost per astronaut dropped dramatically, and the money went to jobs in the U.S. So that's why people think SpaceX is valuable. Tesla.
I mean, the annoyance though of like people holding it against you that you've had success, holding it against you that you have wealth, viewing billionaires as evil and. You're not doing enough to give back. You have like the Elizabeth Warren thing that you haven't paid your fair share. I mean, that's got to be kind of aggravating.
Yeah, I think it's just important to understand like what is this wealth? It's not like I've got like some massive cash balance. My cash balances are very, very low, and at least until I sold stock, which is really the first time I've actually sold stock in any meaningful way, was this quarter. I simply had loans against my stock, so if Tesla and SpaceX went bankrupt, I would go bankrupt too immediately. So.
It's not realized, is what you're saying. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's just like people. It's like, I built these two companies, and it was extremely difficult to build them, like massively painful and difficult, rewarding too, but massively painful and difficult, and I didn't sell the stock in the companies. My sort of impression was that, you shouldn't take money off the table, or you shouldn't take stock off the table and de-risk things. That a captain should go down, with their ship. So it's like, okay, I don't want to take money off the table, and then if the companies fail, then I'll be sort of enriched while investors suffer, and that does not seem right. So anyway, that's the reason I didn't sell. Is I could easily have diversified and protected myself financially if SpaceX or Tesla went bankrupt, but I did not. And SpaceX and Tesla came very close to bankruptcy many times. Even when bankruptcy was literally weeks away, I did not sell stock. And then the companies became valuable. Tesla's value and SpaceX's value is not up to me. It's up to investors. And they decided Tesla was worth $1 trillion in the public market. So, and I own 20% of the company. So
you're not apologizing right now. You're not going to look into the camera and say, "I'm so sorry."
Look in the camera right now.
I'm just trying to explain. I don't think people necessarily understand.
They don't. Yeah.
That this is not, some function of sort of hoarding or something. It's simply that, I own 20% of the company that became very valuable as decided by external investors. And so 20% of $1 trillion valuation is $200 billion. And I've said at various times that I think the stock price is too high, but the investors just ignored that. I'm like, okay, I literally said it's too high. And they just kept making the price higher. So I'm like,
tell them our value is too high.
So anyway, so it's just but like I said, this is not like my so-called wealth is not some deep mystery. It's simply what is my ownership percentage of SpaceX and Tesla, multiply that by the valuation, that's my net worth. That's super simple, and my taxes are super simple. And I have no offshore accounts, no sort of clever tax evasion or anything like that. And I don't draw a salary or any cash salary or bonus from the companies at all. So. Again, I thought that was morally good to not do that, and so there was one year, I think 2018, where I didn't pay any tax, but that's because I didn't have any income, but I did have a little bit of income, but I had actually overpaid taxes, I think in 2017, so I paid too much tax, and so I got I basically netted that out in 2018 because I paid too much tax in 2017, right. Accidentally. Unless you sell stock, there are no realized gains. So then I was like, well, should I sell? What am I supposed to do? Send shares to the government somehow? I don't know if you can even do that.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, unless I sell shares, there's no actual mechanism to pay tax. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, well, should I sell 10%, in order to pay tax? And I sort of asked Twitter, and they're like, on balance, they said yes. And so I sold enough stock to get to around 10% plus the option exercise stuff. And I try to be extremely literal, so that you don't generally need to read between the lines. You can just read the lines. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
As the fattest guy here, I want to know when are you going to make the candy company? You said on Twitter that you're making a candy company. And you're the closest thing to Willy Wonka that this culture
Yeah,
has.
you could be Willy Wonka.
I didn't see
if
it.
you
When did he
wanted
say
to.
that?
He said,
Was
I'm
that
starting
recent?
a candy
Well,
company. It's going to
I was
be
making
amazing.
fun of Warren Buffett.
But you did say I am super, super serious. We've got the
I think if you put two supers before serious,
that makes it
then
not
that's
serious.
like you're probably not serious, you know. Just FYI for satire writers out there.
Yeah,
I thought that locked it in as like definitely serious.
he's explaining jokes to it.
Yeah. It's just guys. Let me tell you how jokes satire works. No, I was just obviously I was just like making fun of Warren Buffett, who's like he's got this like candy company and stuff. So,
That was my one question.
That's what you got.
No, I did actually experiment with trying to find some compelling candy that would be like, I don't know, maybe much better than other candy. We tried various candy options, but I didn't find any. I couldn't figure out a candy that was like just way better than other candy. Like a little bit better, but not a lot better. And so I was like, unless it's like really a great product, then
You looked into this. You like
So you
really
actually-
looked into it.
Yeah,
Like
did.
a lab.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have Oompas.
Yeah, we tried a whole bunch of different candies, and it was like, there's not anything like that's obviously just way better. So I don't want to just have like a pretty good candy. If there's like a great candy, yeah, some candy that's aces, but we don't need another sort of like pretty good candy.
Yeah, there's plenty of those out there.
plenty.
Yeah.
What does that look like when you like suddenly get an idea like we should make candy? You just call somebody and like what are the steps that suddenly take place when you're like, because you do so many things. I'm just fascinated by what that process looks like.
Rockets, tunnels.
You got a guy you call, Jim, I want to make candy. Make it happen. Like,
I think I did ask for people on Twitter to send me candy that they thought was good.
Deployed.
And I was like, well, what if some of this candy is like, is poisonous or something? But whatever, like, candy for strangers on the internet.
Yeah.
It could go wrong. It's not 100% safe. But I did try a whole bunch of candy sent from strangers.
what's your favorite candy? Sorry, did I
Well, there was
derail
like
this?
a pretty good like peanut, like some pretty good peanut brittle ones, or like that peanut brittle with a bunch of other stuff in it, and some pretty good chocolates, but nothing that was like blew me away. So, and then there were people at SpaceX and Tesla that sent me some candy options, but nothing that was. It's not that I care about starting companies. Like, if there's a very compelling product or service, then that's the thing that is important, not the company. Company is just an assemblage of people to create a compelling product or service. And if a company does not provide great products and services, it should not exist. There's no point in a company for the sake of being a company. That's pointless. Companies should only exist to provide great products and services. A company is just literally a group of people.
So do we have to close down, or can we stay open?
I think there's a lot of companies out there that probably should just be disbanded because they don't make compelling products and services. It's pointless, and those people, better that those people do something else.
I think on that topic, I mean, the question that I just like really, I feel so unqualified to be interviewing you right now. I think we all do. Why are we here? Like, what drew you to like actually sit down
asked
with
for
us?
I'm not the one who asked for. I'm not the one who asked for the podcast. You guys did. Just to be clear, I'm not pushing the podcast on you. You guys came here.
We were like, I will stop by, Texas.
Yeah, just to be clear, who was asking
Drop
who? I'm not like
I know.
Didn't exactly hold a gun to your head for this podcast. Okay?
I'd be asking him right now. I'm sorry, I don't.
You could be on CNN right now.
Yeah. John Lennon could
A
be
real
interviewing.
news organization. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
No, unfortunately, I just haven't. I guess what was it you said the requirement for being a CNN job at CNN is.
Are you a pervert?
I'm not perverted enough.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Not a big pedophile fan?
You know Babylon Bee headlines better than I do.
Yeah.
So.
I think, you know, a lot of us fantasize about if we had lots and lots and lots of money, what we would do. And you've done a lot of the things that like a lot of us fantasize about. Build cool robots, gonna go to Mars, we're gonna fix traffic. But most of us also think we'd become Batman. Have you ever thought about like, what would that really look like to become, or would you go Batman or Iron Man route?
What kind of bat? A fruit bat or an insect bat?
I like the dragon bat. It's big, scary.
You know, because most bats are either fruit or
they carry a lot of
bugs.
diseases. Yeah.
You know, they eat fruit and bugs, like fruit Batman, insect Batman.
Fruit bat.
I need to read that spin-off comic now.
It's a strange choice of creature to emulate, you know.
Yeah, that's true. You pick a different animal, like maybe monkeys that play Pong with their brains.
Man.
Yeah, what would
Pong,
be
monkey man.
Monkey Man? Yeah, exactly. Just very agile.
They're the smartest animal, right?
It can just swing. Monkey Man. That man is more like Monkey Man, really.
True.
Because he's
Pointing
like
around.
he's swinging around and very agile, climbing up things and.
Yeah, throwing a batarang is more like throwing poop.
For Bat, like why can't he fly if he's Batman?
Right.
Bats can fly.
Yeah, that's
You know.
true. He just
Yeah, he glides.
He glides very effectively, though.
So he's really more
Yeah, but that's
flying
like a
squirrel man.
flying. It's more like flying squirrel man.
Sugar man.
Squirrel man. But it says less intimidating, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh no, Squirrel Man. He's gonna get us. You know.
Squirrel man.
Not Squirrel Man again.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of making the grappling hook he has? That thing's sweet. We need those.
You could probably make that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You can make a grappling hook. I mean, the thing is, like when you. It's like they sort of skip the parts where like Batman's always on the top of the building, but like once you get to the ground floor, how do you get back to the top of the building?
Yeah,
it's like
you can't go
you're
up.
kind of huffing and puffing, you know.
Yeah.
Climb, you know.
Yeah, you never see him.
I mean, how do you get to the top of a skyscraper? Even if you've got a grappling hook. I mean,
grappling
how big
hook.
is your grappling hook? Like 50 stories? Like, how big is that cable? You know, it's not really feasible. So you just got to like run up the stairs or take the elevator. So it's like how do you get back up to the top of the skyscraper in Gotham City? It's always like top of some tall building.
So Iron Man then. He'd be Iron Man.
Iron Man?
Yeah, Iron Man.
Well,
doesn't
because
have
you're
that
good at
problem.
calculating the cost of things and stuff like that. So, like, would it be cheaper to become Batman or Iron Man, or just pay every criminal that you encounter a salary to just stop being a criminal?
I think they're
I
trying
think I'd
that.
like to be Irony Man.
Irony Man.
I just defeat villains using the power of irony. It's like, oh, too much irony. I can't stand it. Please, no, stop the irony. I can't handle it anymore. I give up. Too much irony. That would be awesome.
That'd be totally awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be.
Don't make me use irony again.
Cheaper, too.
What are your thoughts on the metaverse, which like takes technology to the next level and puts us in like a virtual world? Like, do you see that as being dangerous, hopeful for humanity? Like, what's your view on that?
Maybe we're in the metaverse right now. It's just metaverse is all the way down. I don't know if I necessarily buy into this metaverse stuff. Although people talk to me a lot about it. It's Web3, you know. Like, sure, you can put a TV on your nose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that makes you in the metaverse, you know. And it's like weird, like, you know, when I grew up, it was like, don't sit too close to TV, it's gonna ruin your eyesight.
Right.
And now I got like TV is like literally right here. I'm like, what? Is that good for you? I mean, have you tried these games, you know?
The VR Oculus stuff.
Yeah, they're okay, you know, but like it gives you motion sickness if you try to walk around. Like you can do a video game on your sort of computer, console, or whatever, and you can be in a first-person game and move rapidly and not get motion sickness. But if you try to do that with VR goggles, you get motion sickness. It's like weird. So then you have to like teleport around with. It's okay. So. It doesn't feel like that's the answer necessarily.
You can team up and Neuralink into the brain so that you don't have to have the glasses.
There you go.
Yeah, a Neuralink, long-term, a sophisticated Neuralink could put you fully in a virtual reality thing. So
I guess what I'm getting at is, exactly what could go wrong, like the negative implications, the kind of dystopian implications that some are drawing out. Like, I think it was I think Jack Dorsey was really critical of the whole metaverse idea. You see problems with people
I don't know.
living in a virtual world and leaving the physical world for that. And
I don't see someone strapping a friggin' screen to their face all day and not wanting to ever leave. It seems no way. Yeah. I mean, does it feel like that to you? It doesn't seem like that to me. Yeah. It's like it gets uncomfortable to have this thing strapped to your head the whole time.
It definitely needs to be lighter.
Yeah, if it was like super light, it'd still be like, I don't know. It's not like you want to be there all day. So, I think we're far from disappearing into the metaverse. This sounds just kind of buzzwordy, and I don't know if hey, is this, have I just gotten too old, and like, am I like one of those people who was like dismissing the internet, whatever, 95 as being like some fad or something that's never going to amount to anything? Although I didn't. I was like saying like 95 was literally the internet is going to transform humanity, and it's going to be like, prior information basically just went by osmosis. Like unless a person called another person or carried a letter physically to another person, like how did you get information around? The vast majority of information was literally person to person. Then you had like the fax machine and stuff, but it's just like,
the way the metaverse is being sold right now is so underwhelming. It's like you're going to be it's like Zoom meetings, but there's an avatar for the person next to you, and you maybe get to design your avatar.
Like I said, I don't want to be like, some old codger sort of dismissing the internet in 95 is not amounting to anything. So there's some danger that that's the case, but I currently am unable to see a compelling metaverse situation or Web3 sounds like more marketing than reality. I don't get it, and maybe I will, but I don't get it yet. Let me put it that way.
It's definitely not monkeys playing Pong. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
I just like to advertise for White Claw. Yeah. White Claw, real men drink White Claw.
Can we get our guys on the phone with White Claw?
Sponsor after the fact.
If you want us to leave that in, then you will pay us. Well, this is the first White Claw ever drunk on the Babylon Bee podcast. So that's great.
You hit a point in your life where you made plenty of money and you could do whatever. What drives you to just keep?
Yeah, it could be slipping Mai Tais on a tropical island.
A robot servant or something.
Windsurfing with naked models.
Yeah.
Some people do that.
So like, what drives you to? I mean, obviously you work and work.
Wait a second. Why am I not? Why? I just realized.
Question everything.
I've been wrong all this time. Why am I working 90 hours a week? This is crazy.
Because I'm always fascinated by the idea of like, I've made it. People always want to be able to say, I've made it.
I've arrived.
Yeah. And like, how do you hit those little islands in your life, and you actually have to break yourself of that mindset. And what are ways that you break yourself of that mindset and keep on going?
I didn't put all this effort into building SpaceX and Tesla because I thought they were easy ways to make money. I mean, anyone who starts a car company thinking it's an easy way to make money is a fool. There are only two car companies that have not gone bankrupt in the history of the United States, and that's Ford and Tesla. And Tesla came within inches of going bankrupt multiple times, as did SpaceX. So, right, and like who starts a rocket company think it's going to be successful? I saw both those companies I thought had less than a 10% chance of success. And I thought it was overwhelmingly likely that I would lose the money that I made from PayPal. I came to North America when I was 17, just by myself. And I had like a few $1,000s in traveler's checks, back when traveler's checks were a thing, in Canadian dollars. I landed in Montreal. I have some family in Canada, and my mom's uncle lived in Montreal. But like we didn't even know his phone number, so I landed in Montreal, and my mom says, "Oh, I just got a letter back from my uncle. He's in Minnesota or something." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. I don't know what to do now." So I just stayed in a youth hostel and like bought a bus ticket across Canada, and I worked in various like odd jobs and stuff. I worked on my mom's cousin's wheat farm in Saskatchewan for 6 weeks. That's where I had my 18th birthday, actually. Worked in the lumber mill, chainsawed logs, and did various odd jobs. and then went to college in Canada for a couple of years. I paid my own way through college, by the way. So, but in Canada, it's like easier because the college is more subsidized, and I was a Canadian citizen through my mom. So, and I got some scholarships and loans and stuff, and then I applied to the University of Pennsylvania, and didn't think I'd be able to go because tuition is really high, but they gave me a scholarship and loans and stuff, so I was able to go there. I graduated with about $100,000 in student debt, and I was going to do grad studies at Stanford, and decided to put that on hold to try starting an internet company. I tried to get a job at Netscape, but they didn't. I'd send my resume and didn't get any response. So I was like, okay, I guess I can't get a job at there are only a few internet companies and can get a job at any of them. So I was like, I guess if I want to do something on the internet, I got to start my own company. But I ended up writing the first maps and directions on the internet. I wrote it personally. Maps, directions, yellow pages, white pages, on a puny computer, like with hardly any. So you had to be like, the code had to be super tight. I even have some patents on like maps and directions and yellow pages and white pages and stuff from ages ago. They're lapsed now, but that company ended up getting bought by Compaq for about $300 million. And I own 7% of the company, so I got like $20 million from that. Put most of it into X.com, which merged with Confinity to create PayPal. And then I got about $180 million from that. And I put all of that into SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. I just basically kept all the chips on the table and just like, let's play another round. And most people take the chips off the table, or at least some of their chips. And then SpaceX and Tesla ended up being valuable, and that's where I am. But the reason for SpaceX and Tesla is, Tesla, if you say like, how would you assess the historical good of Tesla? I'd say it's the degree to which Tesla accelerated sustainable energy. And I've been interested in electric cars for a long time, since maybe high school, certainly early college. My original interest in electric vehicles was not so much due to environmental concerns, but rather from the concern that we'd run out of oil eventually, and or would become extremely scarce and expensive, and then civilization would collapse because we couldn't drive cars or run power plants and stuff. So we needed some form of sustainable energy generation and consumption, or civilization is going to collapse. So that was my original interest in electric vehicles and solar energy. And then I do think there's some risk of negatively affecting the climate. As you increase the CO2 concentration in the oceans and atmosphere, you increase the risk of something going wrong. I'm not like in the camp of the super alarmist global warming. I think, I don't think we're like screwed because of like the current parts per million of CO2 in the ocean's atmosphere. I think like this is actually not a terrible level. However, there's so much inertia in the direction of mining and burning hydrocarbons that the world is still overwhelmingly dependent on mining and burning hydrocarbons. So if this continues and you start really driving up the CO2 in the oceans and atmosphere, then there's increased risk of accelerating climate change, basically warming up the oceans and raising the sea level. So I think that's like I think that's probably just not a wise risk to take, since we will in any case have to transition to sustainable energy long term, because we will eventually run out of oil and coal to mine and burn. Then why run the experiment to see if something bad will happen with a high CO2 concentration in the oceans and atmosphere? Like, it's a pointless experiment. Like, we know we have to get to some sustainable energy economy. It's tautological. Like, so I think there's we should try to get there sooner so as not to run the risk of climate change. Climate change would not be catastrophic to civilization, but it would be very disruptive. Humans love living right on the ocean. So it's like, we're almost like a thermometer. It's like if we're living right on the beach. Okay, so this is like, so even small changes in sea level will put a lot of houses underwater. It's little changes, not have to be big. We've just inherently created civilization that is highly sensitive to changes in temperature.
A lot of politicians who are alarmist about this stuff buy homes right on the water, though, don't they?
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sort of into like vilifying the oil and gas industry, because I think the reality is, like, if we don't have oil and gas right now, civilization would collapse, and everyone would be starving. So we obviously need oil and gas right now. It would be absurd to just stop it. Like, it's not feasible. But I do think we should be trying to accelerate progress towards a sustainable energy future, not slow it down. I think it's just a sensible thing to do to try to move faster to a sustainable energy economy rather than slower, because that reduces the risk of the climate experiment. And like I said, since we know we have to get to a sustainable energy economy anyway, why run this experiment? It's just not smart. Anyway, so the fundamental good of Tesla, I think, is should be measured by how many years did Tesla accelerate the transition to a sustainable energy economy? 10 years, 20 years, that's like the fundamental good of the company.
But to Ethan's point, he's asking, like, why not? Like, is that your answer for why you keep going? Is because these things make a difference. They make a difference ultimately for the flourishing of humanity, for the longevity of humanity. Is that why you're not on a beach somewhere sipping Mai Tais or White Claws?
Yeah. I don't actually drink a lot of White Claw. This is not about like trying to enrich myself. I do not live a life of conspicuous consumption. I work, very long hours, but I think what Tesla's doing is important to the future, and that's why I keep doing it. And I think it's something that I think is Tesla increases the probability that the future will be good for humanity, and then for SpaceX. I think it's important that we take the actions, like that we become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species. This is an exciting, inspiring future. You need to have things that, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about the future. Why live if it's all about solving problems or being miserable? Why live? So they got to be things that are inspiring, that get you in the heart. And I think space is one of those things. So, look at the Apollo program and, sending people to the moon in '69. And wasn't that a great thing for all of humanity? Great thing. And if you ask people, like, what are some of the greatest things that humanity's ever done, that would be one of them. And I think, around the world, people would agree with that.
If you believe it really happened.
Yes, I do get that question.